Welcome to this edition. What day is it, ladies and gentlemen? A Thursday edition even of Kelly and Company. On today's show, we've heard exciting announcements in April for PlayStation gamers, and Blind Gamer Markus McCracken is here with his take on what he got his hands on. Ooh. Big Easter feast ahead for you? Skip the stress. Culinary expert Mary Mammoliti has tips to save you time, stress. It's all that she's got for us, so stick around, folks, because it's time to feast on some great content next.
This is Kelly and Company.
Thanks for being with us. Kelly MacDonald here, reminding you to check out our podcast from your podcast platform of choice. If you've got a few moments to give us a rating and review. Also subscribe to our YouTube page. Always love to throw content up there for you to consume. Lots of great stuff there. That's the YouTube page. And of course, subscribing to our podcast, audio podcast available to you from your favorite podcast platform. Nazreen Abdul-Majid joining me on the show today. Hello.
Hi. Yesterday we spoke about chocolate, and today we're talking about stress-free cooking. So I'm all about this great content coming.
I think that the reputation has to be that food has got to be around. Food, or we'll talk some way of making money, right? Whether it's gig economy or something, or Major League Baseball players making lots of money. I shall explain, Nazreen, because this is a scam that you and I would love to be in on, I'm sure. So Vladimir Guerrero for the Toronto Blue Jays just signed this $500 million contract. Even if you're not a baseball fan, this may have trickled across where you're saying, what? What the heck? Well, he's got $325 million in bonuses. Now, this is supposed to take place over a course of 14 years that this contract lasts. We won't even get into anything else with that. No, I'm not speaking to the sports fans out here. I'm speaking to the money fans out here. So one would ask, what's this bonus thing? Well, they're little bonuses for signing the contract, agreeing to do this with the team, equaling $325 million dispensed every year. The one interesting thing about bonuses is you fall under the categories of tax breaks depending where you sign it. And a lot of sports people will go sign a contract in Florida or Arizona, even if they're playing for New York or Toronto or somewhere else, doesn't matter. But if they sign the contract in Florida, they're not subjected through the years to taxes. Wow. Smart. Yeah. But that's why you pay the agents all the money that you would have you saved doing a tax incentive thing. But that's really interesting, all the little loopholes. And you would think, though, like somewhere like Ontario, the government, our taxes up here in Canada would say, hey, you're playing here, you're making money here. Well, what about our share? But it's just not done that way. And it's not just in the United States, the American Canada thing. There are different areas here, too, where if you were to do something like that, you kind of just walk away. Don't worry about it. But what a way to collect some dough.
Yeah. Do you think they're recognizing that? The Ontario government, at least? Yeah,
I think they have, because I've heard of players. I think one of the Maple Leafs got themselves into a bit of hassles over this, John Tavares, and I think there was some question there with John about it. I'm not sure the ins and outs, but I do recall hearing something like that under the same kind of thing where, he did the same, Florida or somewhere, and signed a contract, and hey, what about our cut? Put your hand down, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Art consultant Christine Malec joins us on the program, and she's introducing us today to a blind stand-up comedian, Mr. David Eagle. Chris, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. I'm very well. Very well. How are you doing?
All right. So far, not as well as Vladimir Guerrero, but, with all that dough. But how did you first encounter David Eagle?
David Eagle is from the UK, and he's part of a singing group called the Young'uns, which is sort of a slur of the young.
The
I like that.
And
the Young'uns.
The Young'uns. So their story is that they were sort of punk rock musician people, and they were at their local pub, and the way they describe it is they heard these really strange sounds coming from behind the closed door of the back room. And when they peeked in, it was a bunch of older people singing British folk music, like really oldie-timey stuff with no instruments. And they got really intrigued. And so they sort of sidled in and started hanging around and really getting interested in this folk tradition of a cappella singing and singing about things that are close by, stories that are happening in your village or your town instead of something that maybe is happening in another country. And so they got their name. There's three of them, the Young'uns, because that tradition often has a lot of older people in it. So
Yeah.
they have this musical group that I've been a fan of theirs for several years, and they're just dreamy. Like their harmonies are tight. Their stories are beautiful. The delivery is amazing. Production is great. How much more can I say about them? So I went to a performance. They were visiting Toronto, very excitingly. So I went to a performance that happened to be audio described, and the one of the performers, David Eagle, he sort of jumped down from one part of the stage to another, and one of his I think it was Sean, said, "Oh, you'd think you were blind or something," and I thought, oh, that's a really odd thing to say in a performance. It's a bit gauche. It's a bit tactless.
Boy.
And then later after the show, because I knew the audio describer, I did something I never do, which is I went up and met the band. It was very exciting. It's not something I would normally do. But and right? Oh, big time. So it turns out that he actually is blind. And so they were planning to go to a pub in town, Noonan's, and they said, "Why don't you come along?" So of course I gathered my friends and we went along. And so
did they introduce you as the groupie? Hey, we got this groupie that's coming along with us. Oh
yeah,
my God!
Time.
Yeah, you tell them. You
woman.
can't introduce me that on the first hangout. Chris,
next time.
Their style of music, I just want to make sure the songs that they've created are their songs with about different areas, but in that older fashioned style.
Yes. So it's this tight 3-part harmony, but they write songs about like current folk heroes or people who are working to prevent suicides. They take a story of someone who's doing something amazing and they make a song about it. And it's beautifully written, incredible production, and the harmonies are so tight, very, very beautiful. So, but this also, David Eagle, he's got a side gig. He's a stand-up comedian, and he's a member of the blind community. And so some of his humor is about aspects of blindness, being blind in the wider world. So I had such a fangirl interest in the band, and then I met them in person. It was very exciting. We sang together at the pub, and that was a real highlight for me. And then I went and looked up his stand-up stuff, and it's pretty darn funny. It's pretty funny.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Krista, with the band themselves, since you had the chance to meet them a little bit, just before we move on, I'm really curious as to, with David being a comic and the others that are in the band, do their music, since you know it well, does that reflect the diversity of people within the band, do you think? Or I know that the stars are really the stories they're singing about.
Yeah, where I see the diversity coming in is the stories that they sing about. So they've got stories about refugees and immigrants and people who came to Britain from Guyana, or people who died coming across the Mediterranean, or a man who was an immigrant from Syria and he started a food truck to donate food, or a woman from the Middle East who was persecuted for basically getting an education. So they tell the stories of many different kinds of people. There's a beautiful story about someone named Richard Moore who was blinded by British troops in Ireland, and his story of forgiveness. And they write songs from so many different perspectives that's where I see the diversity come. But it was fun to meet the other band members because they obviously were accustomed to hanging out with a blind person. So there was no awkwardness whatsoever in our social interaction because they were used to hanging out with David. So hanging out with me and my blind friends was no big deal. And so the diversity of that just came through in meeting them and in their music.
Wow. Amazing. So what are they like?
They're pretty outgoing. They're very interested. Like, you just get the sense that they're looking at the world around them all the time. And the performance that I saw in Toronto was something called The Ballad of Johnny Longstaff. And this is incredibly relevant right now. It's the journals of a man who lived through the Depression and became a freedom fighter in Spain in the Spanish Civil War. And his sort of journey as sort of a poor man of the land, but someone with a real social conscience. And so they have this hour long, it's a whole album. You can go look up Ballad of Johnny Longstaff. And so there's these little verbal recordings of Johnny, this old British guy, talking about his experiences. And then the youngins have taken his stories, put them into like rhyming verse and tight 3-part harmony, and they sing his story, the story of his life. And that was the performance that I witnessed in Toronto a year or two ago. And the word is they're coming back this August, so I don't know where or when, but I'm fully fangirl.
That's great. Well, I think this is great, and I know. Such a treat. I know we're here to talk about David, but boy, that is so cool. And I know so many people out there listening, watching will check that out and go see what they can get on YouTube or from their music sources. Okay, should we get into a bit of discussion about David and the topic that you want to get into afterward too? Interesting.
Yeah. So he does his stand-up in the places where you do stand up, and stand up to me is like the thing I would never do. It's I'll do some performance things and I busk, and I don't have a problem normally putting myself in front of a group of people and talking, but stand up, and it's not because I don't think I have a sense of humor. I pride myself on sometimes you meet that person, you think, okay, my goal is to make you laugh because you're way too freaking serious. And I'm pretty good. I can usually get under someone's, guard and make them laugh. So it's not a lack of confidence in my sense of humor, but to put yourself in the spotlight and say, okay, I'm here to make you laugh. And then as the audience member, you're sitting there going, okay, do it. Make me laugh.
Yep.
And that dynamic is just like,
it's a lot.
Yeah. And not just once. Yeah, I'm here for 40 minutes. You're supposed to make me laugh.
Yeah. And so that I don't even like going to comedy shows. I don't like being a spectator for stand-up, and it's the last thing that I would do as a performer. Have you ever done it, Kelly? Would you ever think about that?
Yeah, I've done some stand-up years ago. My family wanted me to pursue it. I wasn't too interested in pursuing it too much. At first, I thought I was.
See you doing stand-up.
Yeah, I did it when I was in broadcast school. It was funny because I did it for a fundraiser.
Videos?
No. Oh, look, I'm from the old days. There's no videos. There might be a drawing somewhere.
There's a cave painting.
Yeah, exactly. There might be something drawn on a wall somewhere of this stick comic, the stick comic with a white cane stick. I actually did it as a fundraiser for an organization. I was asked, and I didn't realize that my whole class read the newspaper article that was being done on the event. And all of a sudden at the event, a good 30 of my classmates showed up, and it was just really strange.
Wow.
Well, half of them, we didn't support each other. I'm kidding. But it was really funny, and it was something I was curious of. And the late Gord Painter was actually a mentor of mine.
Amazing.
Who, of course, up in Canada, he's a blind comic, and Gord passed away, now I want to say 10 years ago. And he was very well known throughout Canada and down into the States, and would travel and do stand-up. And I met him through some theater work I was doing. And so he was a bit of a mentor for me when it was an interest of mine when I was a late teenager into my early 20s. But it's interesting, like you say, Chris, because you can be out there, and if things aren't hitting, and I think any comic, no matter how experienced they are, will tell you that. So I'm really interested what David might have said as we get into the other conversation about as DJ Damaris and some of the other comics I know. I got a guy, Jeff Leeson, we've had him on the show here, when things land flat. But let's proceed.
Yeah, I think that there's a way in which, like, you've probably had this experience, and if you're blind, you may, or any disability, where you're telling a story about something that happened to you during the day to able-bodied friends, and it's funny. And so I think David's sort of taking some of that, and because he's witty, he can put it in in language and context that makes it entertaining. But the stories that we share as a blind community, as a disabled community, where we might sort of snigger and go, "Oh, yeah, again." But if you've not experienced with that, it is actually kind of funny. So there's a funny way in which, now that we're talking about it, I feel like 2% challenged to actually sit down and try and write something that would be potentially funny.
I also think we always get from people, oh, that's so funny, so man, maybe I could do this. But we also have to remember the people, our audience knows us, which might make it even funnier to them. The fact that they're supportive of you, a strange audience that doesn't know you or relate, in David's case, talking, if anything he's referencing is blind related, it could possibly go over their head. So that's the skill that I'm sure he has as a professional, to be able to break that down. It's sort of like explaining something that you understand because your career is involved in that. How do you simplify it for others? How does he make it relevant and believable and understandable if somebody else listening doesn't quite understand what it's like to go in the wrong door?
Right. Right. And it does demystify it too. Like, it has that value as well, where it might be the thing people are afraid to talk about. And so making it a topic for stand-up puts it in the realm of, oh, it's actually okay even to joke about it. To
laugh at ourselves or laugh at the subject matter without anyone throwing a shoe at your head saying, how insensitive are you? Chris, do we have any audio, a clip?
I believe we have a YouTube clip, yes.
Okay, all right. Perhaps so we can roll that. If we have one, I think, Mark, we have it.
But I'll give you an example, because I'm not the kind of person to just crudely stereotype an entire country. Crudely stereotyping, that's not me. That's the French. I'm in this pub in Australia, and this man who I've never met before just sidles up to me, and his opening gambit is, "What the f***'s wrong with you, mate? Are you on drugs?" Which I thought was an interesting chat-up line. I don't know, maybe that is a famous Australian pick-up line. I've not consulted the famous Australian rule books on flirting. The didgeridoo's and don'ts of Antipodean seduction. 101 ways to get down under. How to have fun in the bush. So I said to him, are you referring to my eyes? Because sometimes my eyes will move around in their sockets, searching for the light. Praise the Lord. I said, are you referring to my eyes? And I thought, he's going to cotton on to the fact that I'm blind now, and he's going to adjust his brashness accordingly. But there was no chance of that. He just goes, yeah, of course I'm referring to your eyes, mate. They're wobbling around up and down, side to side. What the f*** going on with you, mate? Are you on drugs? So I thought, well, here's the thing. He's Australian, seemingly therefore his default position is brashness and confidence. I'm British, so of course, naturally, I feel awkward. For him, on his behalf. I thought, someone's got to be awkward in this situation. It's clearly not going to be him. I'll take one for the team. So I said, what it is, my friend, is I'm blind. And I said it as sensitively and as politely as possible, because I didn't want him to feel upset. And I waited maybe for the tears to well up in his eyes, maybe for him to pull me into an embrace when he realises that his brash, confident Australian ways have just got him into trouble with his poor British blind, sensitive soul. But there's no chance of that. He just goes, well, that's a shame, mate, because I was looking for some drugs. See you later.
He's so funny. I couldn't help but chuckle in the background.
I was trying
Chris,
to keep it in. Yeah.
Did you ask him what it's like to kind of take blind jokes or the subject matter, send that to an audience, and vice versa? I don't know, with you having your friends that were there, and like you said, the ease that the band had with blindness, being around blind people. I wonder if he's performed as a member of the community for many blind people too.
We didn't actually talk about that, but it raises a question that I think is super interesting. Well, there's sort of two questions. Is there a blind culture, and is there blind humor? Like, are there things that we will laugh at that the sighted world won't really get? And my answer to both those questions is yes, but I still think about them. Someone posed that to me like 3 years ago, and I still think about it and wonder about that. So I have wondered that too. If he was performing for a blind audience, how would his copy, whatever you call it, his material, how would his material be different? And I don't have an answer to that, but I think it might be even more irreverent, perhaps, because when you're performing for a sighted, able-bodied audience, you're sort of keeping in mind that you're a bit of an ambassador, and keep it friendly, keep it polite, keep it respectful. And I think that anyone who's been in a group of people with disabilities or blind people specifically gets a little less respectful, a little more frank, a little more candid. So I would think that if he was performing for an audience that was primarily blind or low vision, that his material would probably be different, maybe a little more raw.
I think so too. Yeah, I think so too. It would be raw. It would be relatable. What I find that's one of the great qualities I look for in stand-up comedy, to relate to me, and I would laugh at that for sure, because I laugh at myself all the time. So that's one of the things.
Timing would be everything.
What I noticed
right?
about him. Timing is everything, of course.
Yeah, and I don't just mean as a comic, but especially if you're going to something that Nazreen relates to, how do I include Chris? Then I got to move on to make Kelly or the Kelly sector of the audience laugh. So I think that's a big thing about time, because we've all sat there and go, oh God, get off of this. This isn't really that funny to me. And I think that's one of the things with a comic talking to a blind audience. Obviously, I think of the way we carry on here. I mean, with the different subject matters that we could joke about a screen reader, and people know our audience, even the sighted people within our audience or other persons with disabilities, they know our screen readers, the way that the computer chats to those guys, whatever. We've heard of this Jaws weird thing or whatever. But somewhere else, you might have to define that or break it down more. As a performer for a blind audience, I really think a lot of us like sound and voices. We relate better to the switches where maybe other people might get a bit more confused. Like he uses the device of the Australian, the accent, the gruffness in the voice, as he's doing it. And I think as a low vision blind person, we tend to connect to that quicker, faster than maybe a sighted audience. My sighted audience needs the gesture, the physical posture of whoever you might be making fun of, or the funny look on the face. Look, yeah, he's doing that character from that person from. Again, some people don't worry about the stereotypes they're reflecting because they're a stand-up comic and they can be bolder, brasher, more offensive. They don't worry about it as much. As the same with language. But that's some of the things I think, in my opinion, and I know. As a blind, I've always loved the sound effects, as obviously the way I do them. But it's interesting because I learned a lot of that from my sighted father. That was his humor. Use sounds, voices, and silly voices for sure.
I love that.
And the facial expression. I wonder about the facial expressions, because I know sometimes stand-up comedians are praised for their mugging, I guess you would call it, like the use of facial expression. So as a blind person, at least if you're blind since birth, that would be really tricky. That would be a really hard one.
It's interesting, again, you say that, because I know I was taught a lot of expressions when I was a kid by my family. The kind of looks, and so I'd have some kind of idea, even if it was being made fun of. What kind of smile is that? What do you mean?
Okay.
I had the sense to ask. Like literally being taught how to. Now, I think the only way I would really learn about comedy, acting, or whatever is books really saying he had this kind of look on your. And I remember going to my mother or father and saying, "What kind of look is it? This kind of. What does that mean?" And being taught it almost literally. Like that's yeah, I think that would be the only way.
So interesting. Well, I won't name names, but an audio describer who I know said that the well, you'll see in a minute, because they said that if you want to know what a group is, how what your material's landing, a blind audience is the best group to be watching, because apparently we don't filter our facial expressions as much as other people. And when they said this, I was like, I was very concerned about that. But apparently as a group, we are very easy to read. In a group
we also,
setting.
I think, react more literal because we don't have the helpers of what actions. I've had theater people say that as well, that they love an audience of, when I was doing more theater and we were performing and a bunch of us would go to a show, they loved it. I'd had people say, I love your audience, your group just understands and follows along better. The sighted people get thrown by too many of the visual gags. So we laugh, of course,
that's
and they
very
do that.
interesting. Well,
But
we're
I think it'd be
attentive.
funny. Yeah, we're more attentive. But then if you look down, like you said about the facial, well, that guy, my jokes aren't going off. Well, that guy looks like he's sick.
Right.
Well, that's because he ate bad food at
he's
lunch.
Sleeping.
Yeah.
Sleeping.
Anyway, Chris, on that, we won't get into what some bad habits I've had. Boring show.
One thing I
He's
did
sleeping.
notice about David that he's sleeping. Yeah, one thing that I thought was interesting when I'm having the chance to meet David was he's not a loud guy. He's very quiet, and he was not the most outspoken or forthcoming of the band members. And I really thought a lot about that, because I'm like, it's not because you're not processing. Like, obviously, if you can create music and stand up like that, his stand up very energetic, right? He's a very energetic presentation affect, and in person though, very, I won't say withdrawn, that would be way too strong, but he was reserved, and a certain caution, or just maybe it was just a hyper observant nature. And I wonder how
interesting.
I think that's really important in a stand-up comic. I would think once I saw it in him, I went, you'd have to be that. You'd have to be absorbent. You'd have to be processing the world around you in a particular
All
way
the time.
in order to synthesize it out in that very outward way of being on stage and being a stand-up.
Yeah, I also think that's
comedian.
just like a writer, right? Everything is potential content.
Yeah.
Everything you experience, every voice you hear, every creak, you know, it's something that leads to something, and I could put that in a story. Oh, that would be good for a skit, because there's so many things that people pick up on. They're always sourcing material. And I think also, we also think a lot of time that performer has got to be outgoing. And we know from so many actors and stuff like that, no,
That
go
it's not
away.
true.
No, I like to be alone.
Yeah.
You're led into it because, but on your TV show, you're acting in front of people. There's like 1 million people watching you. But I'm not here with all 1 million of them. Thanks, Chris.
You're very welcome.
Christine Malec joins us every other Thursday on the program, and today she introduced us to blind comedian David Eagle. Check him out on YouTube for some great content and really interesting perspective from Chris as we got into that. Now, Nisreen, I mean, for yourself, anything that kind of dawned on you as, especially DJing, and with your vision, is there anything that you kind of find, like I would find DJing when I played around a little bit with that, as much as I liked what I was doing, it's the loudness. I find if anyone comes up to me and says anything, for whatever reason, as much as I can hear them and other people can hear each other, but I would have trouble, I guess, because I can't read any lips.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things, because people, make gestures from afar, and they ask me to change a song or whatever. They request a song from far, and I'm like, I can't do it. Loudness is another thing, because there's 2 loudspeakers always behind me, or most of the time behind me. So at the end of the night, when I turn everything off, I hear a ringing, which is not good, I know. But the worst part is, as a DJ, you have to read the crowd. You have to read the crowd to see if you're playing the right music. If they're not feeling it, you change it to the next song. If you see more younger people,
how do you do that? Are you looking for bodies on the dance floor? Are you looking for, like, people are filtering out the loudness of them talking over and not, like, what are your signals?
I'm looking for bodies on the dance floor, and if I'm seeing, for example, more younger people, I'm going to put more trendy songs. If I'm looking for, if I see more older people, then I put old classics, and they get hyped about that. But the struggle is that if I'm far away from the dance floor, that is the difficult part of my job. Yeah. So it's all about reading the crowd. And I feel like stand-up comedy is like a similar thing. You read the crowd. I think so.
But at least you have the reaction, right? You seem to know which of your jokes kind of goes over better. And I don't know how easy it is for comics to curtail it. If you've got a 40-minute stand-up routine, your hour long, I don't know how much I'll take some, or I better go this way. I'm sure many of them build into it. They've got such a repertoire. They know, I guess those jokes aren't going to go over well tonight. These people, this crowd ain't getting it, or they're a tough crowd, or whatever. I guess when you get a real mix, you almost, if you can't see that dance floor, going back to the DJ situation and reading people, do you tend to then go with a mix of music that kind of incorporates because you're not sure what your true audience out there is?
Yeah, and most of the time I do like a consultation with my clients and ask them, okay, like, what's the group dynamic? Like, what's your guest like? Their age group, their taste in music, and we kind of like go back and forth. I really like love interacting with my client and seeing what their vision is like on the dance floor. And that's how I pretty much, because it's hard to see the dance floor at the end of the day. I'm low vision, so for them to, and I always kind of give them a heads up, like, do not request a song from far away, and like, just somebody let me know that, okay, if the bride and groom are ready, like, you have to interact with me face to face and let me know they're good to go. Let me play the song. So it's all about interacting, doing consultations before, seeing the vibe, and then the day of, everything changes. There's going to be things that change. there has to be changes. You can be so ready, but no.
and that's fine, of course, long as, because you're ready for whatever changes. You're so used to the curveballs that you're able to do. But that consultation, wow, how valuable. Thanks for sharing that, Niz. That's really amazing. Out there, folks, you can email us if you have questions, like I just did interrogating Nazreen about DJing. You can do that at kellyco@ami.ca. You can call us at 1-866-509-4545. That's 1-866-509-4545.
What's the big news for April games coming to PlayStation 5? We've heard some exciting announcements, and Blind Gamer Markus McCracken is here with us with his takes. Markus, welcome back. And what are the April gaming highlights for you? Let's get started with that.
Nope, can't. Oh, Markus, we got you muted. Let's see if we can get you unmute, or if you can just reach over there and click, 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 click. All the tricks.
Yes,
we're not hearing you at the second. See if we can see what magic Markus with his fingers there can do to get unmuted. Still not hearing you. It's very interesting. I mean, I find this very interesting when I'm kind of curious as to the time of year where so many things happen at once when it comes to gaming, Nazreen, or is it just the luck? Okay, I think we've got you there, Markus. Markus, there you go.
Okay, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay,
loud and
apologies.
No worries. But what are the April gaming highlights for you? Let's get started with that.
Okay, so for the last couple months, I've been really looking forward to the release of Forza Horizon, crossing over from the Xbox to the PlayStation 5, and also the remaster of Days Gone. So I've actually literally pretty much broke my bank and pre-ordered both titles.
As we all do.
I don't know if they're going to add anything new to the Forza Horizon series, but the fact that you are going to be able to play it on a PS5 utilizing the haptic feedback is going to be amazing. Just be able to feel the gas pedals and braking as you drive along.
That's really cool. That's the one that really excites me. So is it just April, just the timing? Is there a time of year where you find that, things like this happen, where it's a busy month, where is that a marketing thing, or just the way things have fallen out this year?
I think for Horizon, I think it's just happened to be one of the dates that they picked, because if you're familiar, it's actually an Xbox exclusive at one point. And now that they're kind of bringing games from console to console, I think the date that they picked was April, in the month of April.
Okay. So with this Twitch... Oh, go ahead, Niz. I'll let you all jump in.
I was going to say, are there any exciting features coming to that game?
I don't think they're going to add anything new to it besides all the add-ons that they already have. But now that they're coming over to the PS5, I'm hoping they bring something more along the lines for a Sony exclusive for that particular franchise. I think that would be really cool to add, like even a new story. A new season is how they put it, relating to PS5 only. I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kelly, you were going to add something?
Yeah, no, I was just more curious of all the changes with it going over and that kind of thing. But, I guess you kind of covered it there. So did we want to talk about the April announcement of the switch to control, the mapping for people using adaptive controllers?
Yeah, that's kind of, it's amazing. But at the same time, I'm not a Nintendo user, so I had to be straightforward with that. I was asked a while ago regarding accessibility on the Nintendo Switch in general, so I did look it up. At that time, there was only I found was the zoom feature, which is pretty much on all consoles and computers. I just seen today from Steve Siller the button remapping has been there, but I think they've improved it from what I could tell from the video. I think you're able to remap the one trigger. I'm not sure the formality for Nintendo controls. They've actually added text to speech, and that's really huge for the Nintendo. So now there will be screen reader on the menus. Right now, from what I understand, it's going to work as like the Xbox and PS, like Sony. It might not read the games. So if your games do not have screen reader built in it, you're kind of at a luck there, but it's going to at least read the menu, everything on the Nintendo menu for you.
Mm-hmm. I remember talking to Steve a long time ago, and wasn't really the Nintendo Switch really the first where we found that accessibility was talked about, was implemented? And I mean, I'm talking quite like 10 years ago or something, having the conversation with Steve about it.
And see, I'm not 100% sure because all the research I've done, the research I've done, to me, my personal opinion, Nintendo hasn't really been really adamant about adding the accessibility. So I think that they're going to add the text to speech is a big step for them. And again, that's my opinion. Like yep. So I'm hoping they continue with it, especially with today's gaming market. It's getting more and more popular every day.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy how it's so delayed to add the text to speech. I feel like that should have been added a long time ago. But yeah, I was a Nintendo user back in the day, long time ago. But I felt that was when my vision was a lot better, of course, and the accessibility was not great at all with the tiny screen. So the fact that they've advanced so much is still amazing.
Yeah. I played Nintendo when I was younger, but once I crossed over to the PlayStation, I don't think I ever went back to Nintendo, and that's just a preference of mine.
No, I mean PlayStation 5, you can't really compare. That's for sure, in my opinion. But you were going to talk about Days Gone and the updated version.
Yeah, they have recently remastered Days Gone, so it's dropping also this month, I think, in a couple days. I'm hoping it's either going to be before Forza or after. But I'm really looking forward to the updated accessibility. From what I've seen teasers of, they've added visual and audio cues within the game. So I'm kind of looking forward to trying to play it and beat it without the help of my wife. She don't particularly like that idea, but it's one of those games that I really enjoyed, but was unable to play it without the assistance. So I'm looking forward to jumping back on the bike. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the game, but it's resolved around a biker and you get to drive around on a Harley. I call it a Harley, but
the dream.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to being able to talk about the added accessibility that's been teased a little bit here and there.
Wow.
Yeah.
But that's your goal, right? In your case, Marcus, with this is kind of that goal of, would you say, independency? Like, I know, Nazreen, you notice different things as your vision gets worse and must think, well, I wonder how long before I can do this, or what will happen, or what if they make a simple change and it makes this forbidden fruit for me?
Absolutely. Like The Last of Us, I was able to play and complete on my own. So if I can do that with this title or with the added accessibility, excellent. Like, I'm going to try regardless. The audio cues might not work for me, but they may as well. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I've completed games without any settings, not knowingly that I actually used like a camera click, and that actually helped me get to where I needed to go. So there's been accidental finds that I've found as well. So, but yeah, the actual goal is to be able to do this on my own. And that way I can others know that it's possible. You just play around with it.
I love that. Isn't that an amazing feeling, though, that you finish The Last of Us and then you're trying to do Days Gone? How is that going to feel for you?
If I'm able to do it on my own, it's going to be excellent. Like that particular game, it's a long game. I would say it's probably longer than The Last of Us because it's more open world, sort of. So if I can do that and enjoy the motorcycle and the club feel on a video game, then it's going to be very amazing to be able to complete it.
What's your goal for how long you're going to finish it for? What's your goal?
Once it's in my hands or downloaded, I'm hoping a week, depending on my schedule.
Wow. That's commitment. I feel like I thought it would take longer than that.
It could, but I have a habit of just going directly after the story and not ignoring all the little side missions. So if I can do the story within a week, then I'll tackle the side missions and just keep playing through it. I get bored
so quickly when I hear the stories and the mission and everything like that. I skip all the instructions and I go straight to the game because I honestly get too bored when it comes to that.
Yeah.
Nazreen, have you ever had to say goodbye to a game as your vision's changed that you just now can't utilize, or due to a change in an update or something?
Yeah, there was so many, and especially that I didn't really get into understanding the accessibility features to every game.
Right. Yes.
So
yeah.
And again, like I mentioned this before, where I grew up not knowing so many people in the disability community. So there were extracurricular activities, gaming. There was so many things where I'm like, okay, I guess I'm just moving on from that. I didn't really try to look for an accessibility features until like just a few years ago. So it's been great.
Yeah. And just Marcus, you don't want that.
Finally.
You don't want that to happen to you. You want to be able, and you see the accessibility grow and people like Steve and you out there pushing for it. You don't see the reason it should take you out of it. But that's not reality either in the world we're in. Some things you just unfortunately can't do, or they change.
Absolutely. And for myself as a gamer, I accidentally found accessibility while I was playing NHL, like a lot before my vision got worse. I was just going through the settings and I just happened to see this one section that I've never noticed before. And I turned, I think it was the screen reader that I tested. I said, oh, this is kind of cool. And then I shut it off because I didn't need it at that time. Right. So I'm hoping with the way things are currently, we won't get into politics, but I'm hoping it continues to grow and not go backwards in a spiral because the gaming industry is making huge strides and I would like to see that continue.
Yeah, I don't want to see casualties of policy.
Yeah.
When you first look at the accessibility features, you really do get overwhelmed and kind of, for me personally, I get anxiety when I go through the accessibility features. It's exciting, but it's also a little stressful because I'm like, I don't know what really works for me. You just kind of have to like play around with it, feel it out kind of thing.
Yeah, and believe in the power of it.
Yeah. Depending on the game, there can be a lot there to go through. So it's really all your preferences.
You need the patience for it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Marcus.
You're very welcome.
We'll catch you next month with more gaming updates and demos.
We're looking for members of the disability community, ladies and gentlemen, to join our AMI research panel. Our research panel guides us with everything we do at AMI, including programming, media consumption, and, of course, accessibility. Participants are compensated for all long-form studies. For more information and how to join, go to ami.ca/panel. We'd absolutely love to have you on board. Do me a favor, follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Lots of work goes into what content is out there at Kelly & Co. AMI. And Nazreen does so much work to keep you up on things and to get the conversation going. We're always looking for your thoughts, your feedback, and entertainment as well. We do our best to provide for you. Easter's right around the corner. And whether you're feeding for 4 or 14, the secret to a smooth holiday meal is prepping smart. Mary Mammoliti is here to help you plan ahead so you can actually enjoy the day. Wow, I remember saying that to my mother. Oh my gosh. And my dad would say, sit down, try to enjoy. Mayor, welcome back. And if we want to start, to get our holiday meal cooked, how can we do it without it being a whole marathon dinner day of stuff? What are some easy prep ahead things to do without sacrificing taste?
Well, that's exactly it. Make ahead meals. Make ahead meals. So I would make these meals the day before the big event. So there's a few that I'm going to mention that I want you to think about. If you have a little time, prep them the day before, because they'll actually work out to be even better. So think dishes that will improve with time. So I'm thinking about grain salads, right? So like farro, barley, couscous. I've become obsessed lately with couscous. I've been putting it in everything. It's just got so much substance to it. It works perfectly with so many dishes. Anyway, going back to
that's kind of like those berry salads, right? The grain berry salad, which suddenly I found have disappeared. And I'm sure you can find them, but I've looked and where the heck are they? They're not as readily available. The ones I'm thinking couscous has taken that over.
Correct. Couscous has just exploded. And the reason being is because a lot of these grains, they absorb the dressing, and then it tastes even better cold the next day.
You bet. Oh, yeah.
Right? Think about meat.
Wheatberry. That's the one I was thinking.
Wheatberry, that's it.
Yeah.
So if we think about meat, right? We think braised meats like a slow-cooked lamb shank, a shoulder. Those flavors, they kind of deepen, and the meat, it becomes even more tender. What about ham? Glazed ham, the glaze sets in. Beef brisket. Beef brisket is actually easier to slice the next day. And then the sauce thickens up a bit. It's delicious. Meat lasagna. Now, if you have ever tried to slice up a meat lasagna right out of the oven, you'll know what I'm talking about. It literally just slides apart. It doesn't stay together in this nice little tower combined. It'll fall apart. So making it the day before, it actually gets it to stay together, keeps its structure, and then all those flavors just meld together nicely. So if we're looking for,
how much do you like it that way, Mayor? Mayor, how much do you like it that way? I'm going back that because so many people would be used to it right out of the oven and be all right with the fall apart, wouldn't they? Or again, we're talking to Mr. Not to eat too much pasta, so forgive my ignorance.
Or you'd let it cool down for like 10 minutes or something.
You would. You'd let it cool down for 10 minutes or so, and then you just slice it up. But honestly, I love day after, like second day pasta. And right now, I probably hear a lot of Italian nonnas gasping at me, but it's the truth. I love a reheated pasta in a pan. For me, it has so much flavor to it. And the pasta just gains a little more structure, which is what I like. So that would be my go-to, would be the lasagna the day before, or even a sauce. If you're making just a regular tomato sauce, I'd make that the day before. It's funny, as a society, we're not. We want something now, right? Or oh wow, I don't want to eat something that's a day old. Like, we have such weird policies that work against what you're suggesting here, that get in our head. And I'm one that loves leftovers. I love them. I actually cook purposely to have leftovers for another meal and repurpose that into another meal. So you're looking at the girl who likes to make ahead. And I do a lot of meal prep as well. So I love that. I mean, if we want vegetarian options, vegetable lasagna is another one. It's very good in calcium. You don't like pasta, or you're not a big fan of it, let's say. Vegetable lasagna is a great way to go. And if you make it the day before, it actually works out even better, because sitting overnight, it's less watery. A lentil or a chickpea stew, that right there. The flavors just melt together. Those spices develop. I would definitely do that the day before. Oh, some side dishes.
Yeah. Okay. So I love hosting, but I do end up, I'm one of those people that stress out. I'm panicking last minute. Yeah. People are coming in earlier than the time that I told them to. It
always happens.
It always happens. When you want them to be late, they come early, vice versa. But one thing that I always struggle with is every time I go grocery shopping, even though I make a list, I always end up forgetting one or two things. So I have to run back And what's your strategy over getting groceries?
Okay, so groceries, you definitely do need a strategy. So you've hit that right on the head, because that strategy means less chaos for us.
Yeah.
Right? Start early. This is key. Don't leave it till the last minute or the Saturday afternoon before the event, when everyone has picked over everything on the shelves. Plan it out. Go a little earlier. When you talk about a list, make a tight list. So something precise. You don't want, oh, maybe if they have this, I'll get that. Or no, you want a tight list. You want to stick to it. And then plan your menu around overlapping ingredients. Let's talk about maybe, lemons, herbs that can be reused into different dishes. Carrots is another one that can be reused in different dishes. This also reduces food waste, but it also reduces your cost. So keep that in mind as well. And then check your pantry, honestly, before you go. And the reason why I say this, check your pantry, right? Everyone does it. I'm guilty of it myself. Check your pantry, because honestly, there may be paprika in there. You're looking for paprika, there may be paprika, maybe even 2 in your pantry because you forgot to check it last time.
2 started ones too.
Exactly. Yeah. So I would definitely do that.
Okay.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. Mayor, what about the appliances? Because again, if you're doing stuff a bit the day before, whether you are or aren't, what appliances can give us that helping hand to pull off this big meal?
Okay, so adding everything that we said, now we're moving on to, we have some pre-made meals, we have some that we're going to make together. Use your oven to reheat things, your slow cooker, your Instant Pot to keep dishes warm, so you don't have to keep everything within the oven. Warm veggies in the oven while the dressing chills in the fridge. The reason why I say all this is because all these other little appliances that are warming dishes, cooking them, whichever you have, even those little toaster ovens, utilize that, because it frees up that stovetop space that sometimes you're always scrambling to find at the last minute. That's that's my game plan always, is to have more real estate on top of the stove for those, if I have to heat up a little gravy or whatever it is, I have that readily available to me.
That's awesome. Okay.
What are your tips for keeping things simple but still special?
It's simple. Don't overcomplicate it. Just don't overcomplicate it.
Okay, let's make it.
We always want this big to do.
Hard.
Right? You do it like 20 million dishes and you're like, okay, I have to do all this. No, we don't.
Yeah.
The other thing is, just do 20. The other thing is, skip the plated courses. So always serve family style. And there are a few reasons why I say this, because a family style, it's more relaxed, and your guests get to serve themselves. So they get to choose what they like, and what they don't like, they leave behind. And then they're more likely to go back for seconds when the dishes are in the middle of if you can fit it on the table, on the side. Family style is the way to go when it comes to, especially if you have it on the table, because they can serve themselves. And the food tends to go a lot quicker. You're left with a little less leftovers to deal with after. Think about maybe an appetizer charcuterie board would be a great idea. You put that in the center, everyone helps themselves. A salad spread, which is always nice. And this is one of my favorites, a dessert tray. So this way, like I said, everyone can help themselves. And there are different options on there. Yeah.
Funny enough, a dessert tray is kind of one of my favorites too. Huh?
Right?
Funny how that works out that way, right?
Yeah, love a little sugar.
So speaking of that, and speaking of Canada, no one was saying anything about Canada. Well, we are. Exactly. Mayor, you have a list of made in Canada treats to share, please.
I do. I couldn't finish and do this segment without adding in a little Canadian treat. So I wanted to give a couple of options. Piece by Chocolate. So it's dark chocolate Easter hollow egg. It's got 3 little white chocolate chickadees inside, which is really cute. Laura Secord, gosh, they've been around since 1913. And they've got a whole spread on Easter chocolates. But one that really caught my eye was a little one called Lily. So it's textured white chocolate in the shape of a little lamb with a pink nose. And it's got a little bit of chocolate trim on the hoofs or feet or hoofs or And then there's the brand called Fredo. Now, I've seen this at Walmart. I've got 2 of theirs. So caramel bunnies, which are bite-sized, individually wrapped. Milk chocolate bunnies with a little smooth caramel on the inside. I love a little caramel. And they also have these surprise bunnies. Milk chocolate hollow bunny with 2 bite-sized. It's all about these little bite-sized surprises inside. 2 little bite-sized bunnies. More. Right.
Yep.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Of course, you could run that scam with the hollow ones too. Funny enough.
Exactly,
anyway,
right.
I digress.
And the reason I wanted to mention this brand is because they are all peanut and nut free, and they're also gluten free. Our favorite Purdy's chocolate, they've got some vegan milk chocolate, aside from all the usuals, but I wanted to highlight their vegan line.
Nice.
So they've got a vegan milk chocolate spring egg, which is really delicious. And I've actually tried that. It's very, very good. And then Rocky Mountain. This one's just so cute. Rocky Mountain Bunny Suckers. So it's a milk chocolate bunny head on a stick. And each one, it's hand painted with a little bit of cocoa butter details. And then it's finished with pastel sprinkles on the ears for the little festive little touch to it.
Ooh.
I want that so
that
bad.
was so cute.
Yeah, it is. That's beautiful, Mary.
I'm an adult and I'm getting excited.
But that's okay. You're supposed to. It's just next week, Easter, and all the excuses. I mean, all the reasons that you need to have and indulge.
Exactly.
Thanks, Mary. Wow.
Thank you. Happy Easter.
Thank
too.
You. Happy Easter.
That Easter feast went from full stress to full flavor. Nazreen, so much to take in, so beautiful. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you.
You know she's off to figure out what she's making and what kind of chocolate she can find now. Hololist, please, Hololist. On the next show, Spencer West is a motivational speaker, content creator, and an amputee. Who's changing the conversation around disability about living life without limits. We hear his personal story on the show tomorrow and what drove him to inspire millions of people out there. And Michael Fair brings us a chilling treat with the conception of terror, a collection of 4 haunting tales inspired by the stories of M.R. James, refreshed, of course, for modern times. On the next edition of Kelly & Company, those conversations, fedoras off to you. Talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks for tuning in to Kelly & Company. Follow us on all social media, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more.